I don't know what's going on. Having some possible technical difficulties, but we'll work through it, okay? So, hi, I'm Margaret Lloyd. Nice to meet you. Uh, we're here today to talk about my life experiences in in hopes. My hope is that I can prevent someone else from going through the same experiences I did, at least in my adult life. As a child, we deal with our parents. Our parents don't have books, didn't have books back in the day. I was born in 1953 in Glendive, Montana. And yeah, books back then was basically Dr. Spock. I was born September 18th of 1953. My brother Mark was born November 23rd of 55. My sister Susan was born July 22nd of 58. We had a good childhood, early childhood in uh, Glendive, Montana, playing in the snow, playing with the dogs, playing with the neighbor kids. My brother had a tendency to want to climb mountains. He climbed everything. So he wanted to climb Hungry Joe. In Glendive, we had a little mountain, wasn't much more than a molehill, but we called it a mountain, and it was called Hungry Joe. He always wanted to go climb it. My mother was always afraid for him because he was still a baby. Shoot, he was when we left Glendive, Montana, he was only 3 years old. How far is a 3-year-old going to go? Well, he tried. He would walk to the foot of the mountain and he would, you know, I'll go up, I'll go up. And, he never went up there. But it always scared Mom because there had been some kids that had climbed up the mountain and fallen into evidently on the other side of the mountain was a water hole, sinkhole, and kids had fallen in there. So that was a fear that Mom and Dad had. One of us kids had fallen there. We never went up that far. Anyway, so, but Mark and we had fun growing up in Glendive, Montana. It was a small little railroad town. And Dad was in the oil business, and that's why we were there because there was oil in Glendive and the surrounding areas. So we lived there until I was about 5 years old, and then we moved to Casper, Wyoming, which is a bigger town, more oil. We had a blast. We were there from, I would have to say I was 5, so maybe 59. We moved to Casper and we stayed there until about 68. 68, yeah, when my parents divorced. Now, the reasoning for their divorce was incompatibility and some abuse. My father was an alcoholic. My mother was an alcoholic. She says she didn't drink all the time, but I can remember as a kid coming home for school, and there she'd be with her gimlet, taking a sip, handing me a Diet Right cola to enjoy after school because I couldn't drink a regular pop because I was fat. I was eating too much. I was the garbage disposal, so to speak. That's what my brother used to call me. Give it to Margaret, she'll eat anything. But so yeah, I was heavy, hefty, overweight, and not a happy child. But I acted happy because I didn't know any better. But I think internally I wasn't happy. I may have acted happy, but I wasn't. When you think about it, then we moved to Casper, Wyoming, met some nice neighbors, Danny Downing and Julie Downing across the street. Those were my brother and sister's best friends. And then my friends down the street was Diane and Donna Johnson. They were my bestest friends. I mean, we did everything together. We rode bikes. We went to school together. They were a year older than me, but we would always walk to school together. And even when they went to junior high and I was still in elementary school, we walked together anyway because my school was like a block from theirs. And it was fun. We had fun together. We had what I thought was a good childhood. But I look back at it now, yeah, maybe not. Maybe my parents weren't the best. I thought they were at the time because I didn't know any better. And I thought the way they were doing things was fine. I didn't know any better. Um, because pretty much all the kids in the neighborhood were oil kids, so all of our parents drank and did whatever. So it wasn't a big deal. Um, but I guess I didn't have the bestest childhood. I thought I did. We'd go on vacations. We went to the Black Hills. That was fun. We went to Yellowstone, Thermopolis, um, different places around the region. And we did our vacation. We'd go to Houston to visit Grandma Lloyd. We'd go and on our way, we'd stop in Ardmore and visit Aunt Louise. And so every summer, we always took vacations. Daddy always took time off so we could go on vacations to see family. That was fun. I enjoyed those trips, even though we'd be in the back seat. Don't touch me. Don't touch. He's touching her. She's touching him. I always got to sit in the middle to keep him in his place and her in her place. But that's okay. But that was my childhood, keeping them in behaving. That was my childhood. Um, and then I remember one fight that mom and dad had, and we had the kitchen, and we had like a wall, which was the stairway to the basement, and then another wall, and then our bedrooms. So we had two hallways, so to speak. And I remember I was having my 13th birthday party, and I had all my friends over. And I remember as we were outside playing and having fun, and neighbors down the street screaming and hollering, "Here comes the Darrington drunk." That was my father. So we all had to clear the street because he might hit somebody. He gets in the house. You know, us girls, we'd had pizza for dinner. Dad was pissed. He didn't want pizza. He wanted whatever he wanted for dinner, and it wasn't pizza. I remember one time, well, never mind, we'll get back to that in a minute. So he's bitching and complaining to mom about dinner, and she proceeds to try to fix him something. And I think she was going to fix him a steak or something. I don't know. I don't remember that part. But what I do remember is that he got angry with her and came at her, and she grabbed a knife and was going to stab him with it. And he ran, and she kept running after him, and she was going to get him with that knife. Then he turned around towards her when she got at the stairway, and he was going to push her down the stairs. This was my 13th birthday party. Real grown up, real adult. You know, the girls all went home. That was my 13th birthday party. That was my last birthday party in that house. I loved that house. I loved that neighborhood. I loved my friends. I lost them all because my parents were alcoholics. I didn't know about Al-Anon, Alcoholics Anonymous, or any of that stuff. I was I was just turning 13. I was just turning into a teenager, and I had to endure that. Well, I did, and I learned from it. I grew from it. Then my parents divorced that summer. We moved from Casper, Wyoming to Ardmore, Oklahoma, which was fine. I was okay with that. We had a good trip. Kids sat in the back seat. Mom and I sat up front. I was the navigator. She was the driver. I hadn't learned how to drive yet. Hadn't got that far yet. But I wanted to be able to help her to drive. But she wouldn't let me drive. I understand that. I feel the same way when I go on a trip with somebody else. I want to do the driving. But we stopped in Loveland, Kansas on the 4th of July, stayed at a nice little motel that had a swimming pool and all the trappings and fun things that kids like to to be around in the summer. And we sat out at the pool, playing in the pool, watching the fireworks. That is a 4th of July that I'll not forget. It was very memorable being our first 4th of July without Daddy. I missed my father. I loved my father. I know that he and Mom didn't get along and they were better off apart, but I missed my daddy. So we get to Ardmore and we're living with Aunt Louise for about a month or so, waiting on a house to be ready for us to move into to rent. And it was a nice little house with a nice little yard. Kids wanted a dog. We had to leave Shorty behind. Shorty was my dachshund. I loved him so much. I miss him so much. And I hope to get another one soon. But we couldn't get a dog because we didn't know how long we were going to be there. And then that made sense. When Mom and I talked about it, it made sense. And we then, the following summer, we moved to Norman, Oklahoma, because we figured that, and Mom and Dad even figured that one of us kids is going to go to the university. One of us is going to go to school, is going to get an education. Yeah, well, Dummy here was the first one offered the education. Dummy here, yeah, we'll get to that later. Um, so I had fun in Norman. We had rented a nice little house on Lahoma, an old house. It was nice though, and Mom got us a cat. We got Tylin, and she had kittens because we let her outside and she wasn't fixed. We learned from that lesson. So she had her kittens, and so much fun playing with the kittens. We got rid of the kittens. Can't remember if we sold them or, or gave them away or what, but I do recall that we only wound up with one cat. And then we moved over onto Homeland. Mom was able to purchase a home for us, and we moved over on homeland. And I would ride my bike to school. We would have fun at school. And when I turned 16, I got my driver's license. I learned how to drive the car on Acre Street next to Andrews Park, where all the where the drainage ditches are. And it was, oh my goodness, it was so scary thinking you're going to land in the drainage ditch, but I never did. Never did. I learned how to drive. I feel like I'm a pretty good driver. I'm 70 years old now. I've been driving for, well, since I was 16. Yeah, a lot of years. Not as quick as I used to be, and I understand that. And I can live with that. I can deal with that. I can work on that and get faster, get fast again. But I had fun. I was um, in the pep club every Friday. Went to school with our orange and black on, and we were all Tigers. And we'd go to the football games. I went to the travel games and the home games. Mom would drive us to the travel. Well, the parents would take turns driving us to the travel games. But I remember one time Mom drove a bunch of us down, me and Becky Trant and Sheila Bond, and we all went down to Ardmore for the football game. That was so much fun. So much fun. Becky Trent was a dear. I miss her. I hope to see her at a reunion soon. God bless Sheila Bond. May she rest in peace in heaven. May she be painless and pain-free and just floating around up there, just having fun, waiting for the rest of us. And I know she is. And then I met a young lady, Carlene Lamar. Oh my God. She was like my second sister. She was just so awesome. She was my bestest friend. I miss her because she's in heaven with God. We lost her about 9 years ago. And she was such a sweetheart. And we lost her and Gayla Hansmeyer Palmer all in the same year. God bless Carlene to a heart attack and Gayla to cancer. So many of our school friends, graduates, have passed. But that's okay. That's life. That happens in life. And we learn from our losses. And then, let's see, in my junior year, I met Steve Bennett, and bear with me. He was the love of my life, but he turned into be the monster of my life because he talked me and a friend of mine into cutting school and going to get high. We did, and we were both gang raped. And what are you going to do? You're two girls skipping school. You're not going to say anything to anybody. I didn't. My mother didn't find out about it until years later, years later. I never told anybody until I was well in my 50s. I couldn't talk about it. I couldn't express it. It was too painful. It was something I didn't want to dwell on. So I pushed it way back and way down. And from that point on in my high school life, I had a promiscuous life. I hated it. I hated it. I did it to punish myself for being a bad girl, letting that happen to me, letting me get gang raped. So I would, I got it in my head, you know, all guys, all they do is fuck you and leave you, right? Why not me? Why couldn't I just fuck them and leave them and just let them go and just not worry about them, not care, not care. And that took the caring out of my heart. It took the, and I'm working on getting it back because I had two children. I gave birth to two children and raised a third. I didn't have a caring heart. I need a caring heart so I can make this up to my children what I have done to my life because they didn't do it. I did it. I did it to myself. After Steve Bennett and I broke up, like I said, I just went, one right after the other. Just get them over with, get it done until I met someone that I didn't want to let it go. I met Junior Massey. Carlene and Mark Cushman introduced me to Junior. Junior was great to me. I should never have left him, but I did. But anyway, Junior and I got married March 17th of 72, 2 months before we graduated from high school. Everybody thought we had to get married. We didn't. Tara didn't show up for 4 years. And we had Tara. She is the love of my life. I love her to pieces. She's the best thing that ever, she is one of the best things that ever happened to me. And she is the reason that I need to get my caring heart back to where I can give her the love she deserved when she was growing up and didn't get because I let someone else rule my life. Junior and I split in the summer of, let me think, she was born in 76. 77, summer of 77. She was just a little over a year old when I divorced Junior and moved in with Mom. Mom was a big help. She understood the reasonings. I then met Wayne. Wayne and I dated. We got married in 78. We had no children. We partied all the time. We were partying. I didn't, when Tara wasn't home, we partied. Get high, get stoned, get drunk, go dancing, go have a good time. Well, his eyes started wandering, and I couldn't deal with that. If you're with me, you're with me. You're not with me and 20 other girls. So, we split. I had decided at that time I didn't need a man in my life. I was just gonna go out and have fun and, you know, have fun and leave them. If I find one, I find one. If I don't, I don't. I don't care. I didn't care. The summer of, let's see, 85, Martin moved in next door. We met, we talked, we dated, we got along. We we had a good time together. He was nice and kind. I was having car trouble and he helped me with that. He actually bought me a new Toyota Celica. Never had a car like that in my life. And but he said I needed a good, safe car, and I agreed. I did. And so we got married in 86. And from then on, he controlled my life. He all but told me when I could go to the bathroom and when I didn't need to go to the bathroom. But he controlled my life. I don't know why I let him control my life. I know if my daddy had been alive, he would have not allowed that. But Betty thought he was nice, but yet she thought he was controlling, but didn't tell me. If she had told me, if I had known, if people had told me what they saw in him that I didn't, because I had blinders on, I didn't want to see the bad in him. I wanted to see only the good. But I never found the good. He destroyed me. He took my care away. But he didn't do that at first. He did it slowly and painfully. So we were living here in Norman in our apartment complex. I got pregnant one October and lost the baby. A year later, in 87, I found out I was pregnant again. I was so happy that I was going to have another baby. Didn't care whether it was a boy or a girl, what. I just wanted a happy, healthy baby. He was happy up until he was 5 years old, but his father ruined him. I love Bo to pieces. I want that happy boy back. All I have now is a hateful boy, a young man that is so angry at the world for what he perceives was, and he's probably right, was our bad upbringing of him. When he was young, my guidelines for kids was always this. Up until 5, you tell them, you teach them how to do things. You show them how things are done. After age 5, you start some discipline. Bo was always such a good little boy. I never felt the need to discipline him other than to a little smack on the hand, a little smack on the fanny, but never. And that was just basically for because I said don't touch that, and he had to touch it anyway. And so you slap their hand, you spank them on the little fanny a little bit because you hit them where there's padding, where you're not going to give pain and harm. You just want to get their attention. Well, not everybody does things that way. That's the way I do it. And I think that's a good spot to end it for today. Tomorrow, we'll move on from there and see what it brings. I thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoy this, and I hope everybody learns something to not do. Try to be positive. Try to be kind to one another because that's all we have is one another. Just one another. Be kind. Peace out.